Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
And welcome into Capitol View. I'm Jay Burr. Well, we've been dealing with a lot of voter ID laws here in the state of Arkansas, and now they are trying to tackle some of these at the federal level as well. Here to kind of help us make sense of that from the 4th District of Arkansas, Bruce Westerman joins us here, boss, and we always appreciate the time. Let's kind of get right to it here. I know the voter ID law is something that you're actually sponsoring. You're bringing it up here at the federal level here. Now, it doesn't necessarily deal with the concept of ID, but it kind of falls under that umbrella. Kind of explain that a little bit.
Good morning, Jay. Great to be with you. It's always good to be on your show, and appreciate you taking time to talk about the Voter ID Act, a bill that I've filed here in Congress. And I tried to do this as an amendment onto H.R. 1, which is the #1 priority of the Democrat majority in the House. They call it the For the People's Act. We've labeled it the For the Politicians Act because it's an attempt to nationalize elections. It does away with the constitutional authority, or tries to, of states carrying out federal elections. It does away with all voter ID laws, like the one we have in Arkansas, which when I was in the state legislature, we passed that and had to override a governor's veto to get it in place. And then it also has this program to match funds where 6 of your tax dollars go to every $1 that politicians raise for their campaigns. So as you're watching campaign ads, you could think I'm paying for that too. I don't think that's what American people want to see, or how they want to see their tax dollars spent. So I tried to put this amendment in the bill to protect voter ID laws across the country. The Democrats rejected that. And I went ahead and filed a standalone bill that we're calling the Voter ID Act. And this bill really amends code that was put in place in 2002 in the Help America Vote Act, which resulted after the 2000 election. And it's been successful. The 2000 election centered a lot around Florida and the election laws in Florida. After the 2002 Help America Vote Act, Florida is now kind of the poster child for the state that runs good elections with a lot of integrity. But this bill that I've got, I think, empowers people through transparency, along with protecting voter ID laws. It also requires states to do audits of their elections and to post those audits within 30 days of the election. And it also encourages states to follow the 1993 Voter Registration Act that President Clinton signed into law that said states are supposed to clean up their voter rolls, which many of them haven't done that. So first and foremost, I want to leave elections to states, like the Constitution says, but I think it's also fair to have requirements for transparency and audits so that citizens in the states know how their state's carrying out elections, and so that we can restore integrity and trust and voter confidence into the election process, because that's absolutely fundamental to our self-governance and the type of freedom and a system of government that we have here in the United States.
Now, in the audits, you mentioned kind of what are some of those things that they look for? Is this sort of like a double checking of what the votes are and how they were counted and everything, or kind of what's involved in that process? Because not all states actually, perform the audit.
Yeah, currently there's about 38 states that perform the audit, and a lot of times these audits are done long after the elections are over and the votes are certified. One thing that came out of the Help America Vote Act was redundancy, and when you have electronic voting machines, also to have paper ballots, and the audits have best practices where you go in and check a number of these voting machines against the paper ballots, and it gives you a degree of certainty on how well the machines are operating. You could also look at things like duplicate votes. You could look at your voter registration and voter ID laws. So no state's audit's probably going to be exactly the same, but through the Election Assistance Commission that came out of that Help America Vote Act, they have a whole list of best practices. You've got Secretary of State's Association that's come up with best practices. And it's really kind of a clearinghouse for best ideas on how you do these audits And most importantly, though, I think the audits need to be done in a timely manner and need to be made public so that voters have confidence in the election. And regardless of how you feel about the election, polls show that 1/3 of the American voters feel like something wasn't right in the 2020 election. And, you know, it was all compounded by the pandemic and states that, you know, they were carrying out the election according to the laws that their states had in place, but some of those states had given a lot of leeway to the executive branch. And I think that's another thing we're going to see in state legislatures across the country, where they go in and start tightening up these laws and regain some of that authority that they've delegated out to the executive branch.
And I guess, too, and you kind of mentioned it, the last election, you know, there being some faith lost in the system. Is there anything in your bill beyond kind of what you've got here that sort of goes back to restoring it? I know security was a big deal, or at least was perceived as a big deal in the last election. You know, some of these fake ballots, allegedly. So is there anything in there that addresses, you know, just some of that security in sort of the process of voting?
Yeah, there's been polling done, and I've sat in on some listening sessions. I've gotten to be friends with a guy named Frank Luntz that does a lot of polling, and he did a lot of follow-up analysis after the election. And the one thing that really came out of these focus groups was voter ID. You know, the thing that people, I think, can understand and agree on the most is that there's no reason we should not have some kind of voter identification in our country. In Arkansas, we have photo IDs. But when people were asked what would restore your trust, that was one of the #1 answers, is voter ID. And if you think about it, it's pretty easy. You can't buy alcohol, you can't buy tobacco, you can't open up a banking account. There's so many things in our society today that you can't do without some form of identification. And to think that, like, the fundamental, foundational freedom that we have and right that we have to vote is somehow inferior to those other things that we do that require some kind of identification. So I can see where people get that, and also the idea of an audit and transparency, so that you know, these are state matters, and people in the states can look at how the elections are carried out in a transparent, easy to read format. And if they've got a problem, they go to their state legislature and say, this isn't right. When you go back into session next time, here's some laws that need to be changed.
Well, there you go. He's never short on words. He represents the 4th District here in Arkansas. Representative Bruce Westerman, again, boss, we certainly do appreciate the time. Thank you for clearing it up, and we'll be sure to follow this as it makes its way through the process here.
Good to be with you, Jay. Thank you.
All right. And when we come back, we've got more Capitol View. We're talking about potential replacement for Arkansas Works. That's coming up.
I only paid $37 for my glasses.
Awesome. Success Vision. It's the real deal.
It couldn't be easier.
The eye doctor next door is great.
2 thumbs up? Yes.
My glasses feel great.
So easy. I couldn't be happier. Now that is awesome. I loved it.
It's actually fun to buy glasses.
Great feel and great look.
That's why I keep coming back. I will definitely be back.
You pay for $39 in an hour for less. Come see us today, Success Vision Express.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports, and your day becomes better, and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and, you know, it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
Don't wait for days for your COVID-19 test results. Healthcare Express now offers rapid COVID-19 testing. With an average wait time of 15 minutes, you'll be in and out quickly. Visit gohce.com to find a location near you. Healthcare Express. Get back to life fast.
Looking for your one-stop shop for all your boating essentials? Come to H2O Sports and Marine. From top brands and knowledgeable sales staff to quality parts and expert service, we're here to help you find exactly what you need. And now with locations in North Little Rock and Greers Ferry Lake, H2O Sports and Marine is here to get you out on the water in a boat you'll love with service you can trust.
Hi folks, Bart Sherwood of Sherwood Tractor, home of the Mahindra tractor, the #1 selling farm tractor in the world. Dad always told us boys growing up on the farm, 1 boy's a boy, 2 boys is half a boy, and 3 boys is no boys at all. While that may be true with boys, it's not with Mahindra tractors. What's in your barn?
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back into Capitol View. Well, this past week, there was an option out there to possibly replace Arkansas Works. It's called Arkansas Home. Now, obviously, the home stands for a lot more in here to help us kind of with that acronym, and also to kind of tell us what this is, what it does, is the always lovely State Representative Michelle Gray. Michelle, we certainly do appreciate the time. I guess let's jump right to it here. Arkansas Home, what is it, what does it do, or at least what's the plan for it to do?
No, I appreciate you having me on. Arkansas Home, it stands for Health and Opportunity for Me. And it's essentially the same basis of what we had with Arkansas Works, which is Medicaid expansion. It's a waiver program. So we're trying to continue that waiver program and use qualified health plans, essentially buying insurance for our beneficiaries. So we're continuing with that basic model. But what I love about this new model is that instead of treating every beneficiary the same, we're buying you an insurance plan, here's your plan, and let's go. What we're doing is saying we're going to treat each demographic a little bit different. So we have something called Life 360 homes that we've included in to really tailor the program. And then we've also included outcome measures for the insurance companies. Medicare's doing it. So most of the payers are doing it, trying to get better outcomes, health outcomes for the beneficiaries. So several new things in this waiver.
Now, the Life 360 homes are really a different thing, and I know it's kind of a twofold thing. It also focuses in on certain aspects of things, but it also kind of helps save a little money in sort of the big picture way, because there's already existing infrastructure in place. Kind of what are some of those focuses that you guys are really honing in on with the Life 360?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we've got 3 major focuses. The first one is rural. We're calling it Rural Life 360. And the critical access hospitals and SHIP hospitals is what we're kind of using as the hub. So we've got critical access hospitals all across the state, and we're going to use those they'll employ like life coaches to try and actually coach some of our beneficiaries, what their needs are, whether they're social or medical. And what I love about this particular piece is the hospitals that want to participate, they'll be able to have acute crisis beds. So back 3-4 years ago, when we were looking at justice reform, I went to Texas and toured a crisis stabilization unit, as well as a large homeless shelter there in Dallas. And just seeing what those crisis units did to lower the recidivism rate and to keep people out of prison, to me, this right here is a way that we can help with some of that for mental crisis, and also for substance abuse disorder. So, up in my town of Mountain View, Arkansas, that's in my district, there's a critical access hospital there. When I've got somebody in an acute crisis need, instead of trying to wait 2-3 days to find them a bed in Little Rock, we'll have a bed available to meet their needs right there, close to their hometown. So that's one of them. Second one is called Success. We'll have special programs for demographics such as veterans, also foster kids when they age out of the system. This will put them in this program tailored to what they need. Their needs are completely different than veterans, correct? Right? So, and then the third one is the maternal R homes, where we're going to focus on pregnancy. We have, I think we're 49th in the nation for mortality and bad outcomes. So we're going to try and focus on that and actually send coaches and qualified people to the homes to try and help, make sure that they're getting the prenatal care that they need, that they know how to breastfeed or bottle feed, that things like that are in place.
And two, I know this program, as you mentioned, it covers a lot of different areas here. I guess too, in the big scheme of things here, I know a lot of people with it replacing Arkansas Works. I mean, does this program sort of save money, or is it spend it more efficiently? Because I know in the press conference last week, the state was looking at getting upwards of $3 billion over this 5-year waiver.
Yes. So I think this continues kind of at the same place we were before. You know, back when the program initially started, private option, and then transitioned to Arkansas Works, the federal government was paying 100% of the cost because we opted to expand Medicaid. And now we're at a 90-10 model where we have to come up with 10% of the cost. So this waiver is a continuation of what we've been doing at the 10%. But with some of these preventative services, we're hoping that we can contain the cost, I guess, so slow the curve down a little bit as far as spending. As far as that $3 billion that you were talking about, that's money that we've been getting into the state over the past several years. And where that comes into play is some people think that maybe instead of using these qualified health plans, that we should go to a fee-for-service model and put everyone on traditional Medicaid. And that's the amount of federal money that we pay that we would lose if we did not continue using this qualified health plan model.
Right on. And I guess, too, one of the biggest pieces of this is there's not a work requirement. Obviously, with Arkansas Works, that was kind of a controversial deal with that, but there's not one in this. But there's also the incentives to get people to sort of get those job skills, things like that. I guess kind of, what's the sort of the thought process behind that, and kind of what are some of those incentives that we're looking at?
Yeah, so we the bill itself is essentially the framework for the waiver that will be submitted. And so the work requirement, for the most part, has been taken out. That was stricken. It sits at the Supreme Court right now, and we know that we couldn't get the traditional work requirement through the Biden administration. So these incentives, it's things. It's going to be things like, if you're actively seeking health care, you'll stay in the plan. If you are enrolled and working with DWS, the Division of Workforce Services, you would stay in the plan. If you're actively engaging in one of our Life 360 homes, and we know that that you're working with a career coach, or you're working, you've got substance use disorder, things like that. Essentially, if you're working on one of those plans, you'll stay in the plan. So, if you didn't meet any of those incentives, and I don't know that I'd even call them incentives, but any of that criteria, then essentially you wouldn't lose coverage, healthcare coverage, but you would then go to fee-for-service Medicaid, where the benefits aren't quite as good.
So there you go here. I know it's a very in-depth thing, as all things are with healthcare, but State Representative Michelle Gray, we appreciate you coming on to peel back just a couple layers of that onion, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk on this once it kind of makes its way through the system and kind of gets finalized.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you, Jay.
Oh, we thank you, ma'am. All right, well, when we come back, the Arkansas State Capitol, quite the week it had this past week. A recap of a few things and COVID-19 vaccines issues here in Arkansas. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
The leaves are beautiful until they end up in your gutters. But with Guardian Gutter Protection, you'll never have to clean your gutters again. Let us keep you off the ladder and protect you and your home. Guardian Gutter Protection keeps out leaves, sticks, pine needles, even those annoying critters. We offer a 100% money-back, no-clog, hassle-free Guardian guarantee. Call today for our holiday special, or check us out on the web at guardiangutterprotection.com.
You know every tear, every smile, every heartbeat. You have watched them grow, and you have become closer with every moment. At Health Mart, we understand. We know you and your family and your healthcare history. We know our community because we are locally owned and operated. Pharmacists you know, trust, and who know you by name. Health Mart Pharmacy, caring for you and about you.
Hi, I'm Missy Gibson. My family and I would like to invite you to see all that John Gibson Auto Sales has to offer. We have one of the largest, most diverse, and newest inventory of any buy here, pay here dealers in the state. We have cars, trucks, SUVs, motorcycles, ATVs, campers, performance trailers, and boats. Whether you have good credit, bad credit, or no credit, we will finance you. Check us out at johngibsonautosales.com, and we will have your purchase ready when you get here.
Celebrate with jewelry from J. Oliver's Jewelry Studio. We can now design your jewelry right before your eyes. Why buy the ordinary when J. Oliver's can create the extraordinary? Take something old and remake it new again. J. Oliver's, your full-service custom jewelry studio.
It's Free Furnace February at B.R. McGinty. Stay warm. During February, get a free furnace with your purchase of a qualifying outdoor system. Plus, get 0% financing. Call B.R. McGinty today.
B.R. McGinty, yeah.
Love lower than low prices? Then get more ways to save at Kroger, where you can find personalized coupons, weekly deals, and rewards like fuel points. All for prices that are lower than low. On food that's fresher than fresh. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back into Capitol View. The governor signed the Stand Your Ground bill into law last Wednesday, and it now became Act 250 of the 2021 regular session. Now, the main thing Act 250 does is remove the duty to retreat from Arkansas' self-defense laws. Governor Hutchinson not worried about the law itself, but did say he had concerns of how it might be interpreted by citizens. The governor said in the past Arkansas does not need a law like this, but did say he will sign it in hopes that the hate crimes bill will be passed in conjunction with Stand Your Ground.
I am more convinced than ever that Arkansas must pass meaningful legislation to address crimes committed against citizens solely for who they are and what they believe.
Obviously, reaction was mixed, many feeling strongly for or against the approval. Some said it would open the door to careless shootings, while others claimed it will just help protect those trying to protect themselves.
In a scenario where your life's in danger.
We believe these laws actually create a more lackadaisical attitude towards use of deadly force.
Arkansas is now one of more than 25 states that has a Stand Your Ground law. The first was enacted in Florida back in 2005. Some who don't want to wait until April are heading out of state for their COVID-19 vaccines. Arkansas is in phase 1B, which includes people 65 and older, people who work in education, and now food manufacturing. Oklahoma, for example, is in phase 2 of its plan, and it's fairly similar to Arkansas. But it also includes people of any age with comorbidities. Our Andrew Epperson shows us one woman who has crossed state lines to get her first dose.
The special needs community and the disability community are really being left out.
Katie Burks lives in Springdale and has a chronic inflammatory disorder called rheumatoid arthritis, a heart condition, and asthma.
So I have a lot of things going on.
Burks' doctor wrote a note saying she needs a COVID-19 vaccine ASAP.
I was able to get on the Walmart website and actually get an appointment, but then when I showed up, I wasn't in the eligibility group. So they turned me away.
Burks' husband has a CDIB card given to those with Native American blood, so they qualified to get shots in an Oklahoma Choctaw Nation drive last weekend.
We can't just bring them all in.
Tuesday, I asked Governor Asa Hutchinson whether he's considered moving people with serious health problems into 1B.
At the outset, we've talked about it a lot, and the CDC guidelines is so broad in the underlying conditions that it would be well over 1 million people.
And I get it that, vaccines were limited to begin with.
Burke says people with health problems will continue going across state lines until the state adopts provisions seen in states like Louisiana.
It is time for them to say, okay, anybody who wants one, if you can get an appointment, just go get it.
And as you heard there, with supply limited of COVID-19 vaccines nationwide, its important doses don't go to waste. ADH says once a vial of vaccine has been punctured, it takes about 6 hours before it goes bad. If there are any leftover shots available, pharmacies and clinics have a system in place to use them. ADH recommends calling people in from the current priority group first, but it's better to administer all of the doses from a vial. Now, this was the case for Kimberly Lowe, who has a severe heart condition, and thanks to a no-show at a recent mass vaccination clinic, she's now one step closer to being fully vaccinated.
We know for us personally, it's one more step in the right direction. It's one more step closer to normalcy, to hugging our family.
The clinic made sure there really was a surplus and then allowed her and about 100 other people to get vaccinated. The Department of Health says overall there has been very low waste of the COVID-19 vaccine. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before Congress last Tuesday for the first time since the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol. Wray condemned the riot, but defended his bureau's handling of intelligence. Our Washington correspondent, Jesse Tenor, reports.
As citizens, in a sense, we're all victims of the January 6th assault.
FBI Director Christopher Wray said his agency is holding the suspects accountable, with almost 300 arrests and more investigations underway in nearly every field office.
It's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
But lawmakers who lived through the insurrection nearly 2 months ago still have a lot of concerns.
I was surprised to learn the FBI did not issue a threat assessment before January 6th.
Illinois Senator Dick Durbin and others focused on a January 5th report from the Norfolk FBI office. It warned of online posts foreshadowing a war in Washington the next day.
The information was raw. It was unverified.
Wray said he did not see the report until after the 6th, but believes it was properly shared with other law enforcement agencies.
Our folks made the judgment to get that information to the relevant people as quickly as possible.
Louisiana Senator John Kennedy wanted to know why entities like the National Guard weren't utilized more.
Clearly, our people were overrun by the nut jobs.
Wray didn't have those specifics, but said the attacks came from mostly, quote, militia violent extremists, some of which would be categorized as white supremacists.
Do you have any evidence that the Capitol attack was organized by, quote, fake Trump protesters?
We have not seen evidence of that.
Wray warned the insurrection was not an isolated incident, with the threat of domestic terrorism growing across the country. In Washington, I'm Jesse Tenor.
And we are back to wrap it up after this. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Planning long-term care for a loved one is often one of the toughest decisions many people will ever face, as safety and quality care can be challenging outside of the home. For over 35 years, Superior Senior Care has fulfilled its mission to provide caregiving assistance to seniors who want to stay in their homes. We provide 24/7 personalized care, ensuring the safest and most comfortable option. With more than 25 locations across Arkansas, we offer affordable solutions to in-home senior care. Call or visit SuperiorSeniorCare.com today to learn more.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Clear desk and clear show. That is it for this week. We're back with an all-new Capitol View next week. Make sure you get the Capitol View podcast. Enjoy us on the go wherever you get your podcasts. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see you next week.